The US and Ukraine have published a joint statement on the peace plan. Following closed-door talks in Geneva, the countries announced that they had agreed on an updated framework document. The statement notes that the discussions between the American and Ukrainian delegations regarding the US peace proposal were constructive, thorough, and marked by mutual respect.
Both sides confirmed that any future agreement must respect Ukraine's sovereignty and ensure a lasting and just peace. The final decisions on this framework document will be made by the presidents of Ukraine and the United States.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the participants in the Geneva talks had made tremendous progress. He added that he had already discussed the results of the talks with Trump. Rubio thinks he's satisfied. The Secretary of State also stated that the U.S. understands the red lines of both sides and that Russia has yet to express its position on the plan.
It's still too early to make the results of the Ukraine talks public. They are ongoing. I think today was the most productive day we've had on this issue in a very long time.
President Zelenskyy, following the report from the Ukrainian delegation after the first round of talks in Geneva, said,
"It's important that we're having a conversation with the Americans, and there are signs that President Trump's team is hearing us."
Volodymyr Zelenskyy will travel to the U.S. this week to discuss the peace plan with Trump, Reuters reports. According to the publication's sources, they will discuss the most sensitive issues of the peace plan, such as the territorial question. 2 peace documents were brought to Kyiv. According to media reports, an American delegation led by U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll visited Kyiv on November 19th to discuss 2 projects. Among them is a peace plan consisting of 28 points, which have already been published by Axios. This is not a final document, but rather a framework material for negotiations between the U.S. and Ukraine, which took place on November 21st in Switzerland. The second document, titled Framework Agreement on Security Guarantees for Ukraine, is modeled after the principles of NATO's Article 5. The draft contains 3 points. The first point provides for the use by the U.S. of armed forces, intelligence, and logistical support, economic and diplomatic actions, and other measures in the event of renewed armed aggression by Russia against Ukraine. The second point states that NATO members, together with France, Britain, Germany, Poland, and Finland, commit to act in coordination with the U.S. The third point stipulates that the agreement will be in effect for 10 years, with the possibility of extension. At the same time, Reuters has published another version of the EU's peace plan for Ukraine in response to Trump's proposal. According to Reuters, the peace plan provides for limiting the number of armed forces to 800,000. The nuclear power plants will be restarted under the supervision of the IAEA, and the energy produced will be divided equally between Ukraine and Russia. NATO agrees not to station its troops in Ukraine on a permanent basis during peacetime, and Ukraine will not attempt to regain control over the occupied territories by force. Notably, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated to journalists in Geneva that he had not seen any European counterproposal.
The plan proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump to end the Russian Federation's war against Ukraine could serve as the basis for a final peace settlement, according to the administration of Russian Federation dictator Vladimir Putin, following a phone conversation with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Vladimir Putin noted that these proposals, in the version reviewed by the Kremlin, are in line with the discussions held at the Russian-American meeting in Alaska and, in principle, could serve as the basis for a final peace settlement.
However, earlier the dictator's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, said that Moscow had not seen any U.S. plan for resolving the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine.
We have not received any information so far. Of course, we are closely monitoring the media reports that have been coming in abundance, so to speak, over the past few days from Geneva as well. But officially, we have not received anything yet.
American leader Donald Trump posted on social media in which he wrote,
"Could it be that there has been major progress in the peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? Don't believe it until you see it, but maybe something good is happening."
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced that the Ukrainian representatives who participated in meetings with the American side in Geneva over the weekend to discuss a plan to end the war are returning to Kyiv.
Our delegation is now returning home, and I am expecting a full report this evening on the progress of the negotiations in Geneva and the key points from our partners. Based on the reports, we will determine our next steps and the timing moving forward.
The advisor to the head of the president's office, Alexander Beagle, stated following the negotiations in Geneva that the peace plan consisting of 28 points as everyone saw it no longer exists. Some points have been removed, others have been modified. Earlier, Ukraine and the United States confirmed that any agreement must fully respect Ukraine's sovereignty and ensure a sustainable and just peace. In this regard, following the negotiations, the parties prepared an updated and revised framework document on peace. Turkey has reaffirmed its support for Ukraine's territorial integrity. This was stated by President Recep Erdogan during a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
We have once again confirmed our commitment to the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence of our strategic partner, Ukraine. In this context, I would also like to emphasize our support for the Crimean Tatars, who serve as a historical and cultural bridge between Ukraine and Turkey.
Erdogan stated that Ukraine and Turkey will continue to strengthen their cooperation in the field of trade.
Despite all the difficulties of war, we aim to increase the volume of trade to $10 billion.
The president of Turkey added that his country is ready to join in the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war.
We want to contribute to the rebuilding of Ukraine with the support of Turkish entrepreneurs who, despite difficult circumstances, have not left the country and continue their activities in Ukraine.
The Turkish leader noted that his country is always ready to discuss with the Russian Federation any proposals that would pave the way for a just peace in Ukraine. More than 600 Russian tourists found themselves stranded on a cruise ship near Istanbul. On board the liner were residents of the Krasnodar region, as well as the Moscow and Leningrad regions. All of them had purchased a 2-week cruise costing about $3,000. This situation occurred against the backdrop of Russians refusing entry to a Turkish ferry at the port of Sochi several weeks earlier.
We are on the Trabzon-Sochi ferry. We arrived at the port of Sochi on the 6th of November at 9 in the morning, and we've been on the water for 3 days. We're stuck in one place, and there is no information at all.
The ferry was never allowed to dock, and it was forced to return to Turkey. The governor of Krasnodar Krai, Veniamin Kondratyev, at the time explained the refusal by claiming that the port and city infrastructure of Sochi was supposedly unprepared to receive such vessels. The border administration of the FSB, the FSO, and Sochi Customs stated that launching ferry service between Russia and Turkey is technically impossible under current conditions. Regarding the cruise liner with Russians on board, the Istanbul port where the liner was supposed to dock reported, and I quote, "We have no information, we cannot comment on anything." One Russian telegram channel lamented that this was supposedly Turkey's response to the actions of the Russian authorities. Meanwhile, it has become known that Turkish President Recep Erdogan held a phone conversation with the dictator of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Earlier, the Turkish leader stated that he would speak with Putin about ways to achieve peace in Ukraine, including the resumption of the grain corridor. Commenting on Russia's war against Ukraine, Erdogan stated that he is ready to make every possible effort on the path to peace. He emphasized that a full mobilization of efforts has been declared and expressed hope for achieving success.
The Ukrainian armed forces have cleared the center of Pokrovsk. Russian troops have been unable to gain a foothold there, according to the 7th Air Assault Corps. According to the soldiers, Ukrainian positions remain in the city center and small arms fighting continues. The clearing operation took place in the area of the railway station, the Pokrovsk Pedagogical College, and Sobony Square. This made it possible to block Russian attempts to increase pressure on the northern part of the city and to amass forces. The Ukrainian armed forces also managed to strike 5 important enemy positions in the Donetsk region. This was reported in a statement by the Special Operations Forces on Telegram. It is reported that Special Operations Forces units, using medium-range drones, carried out a series of strikes against Russian forces conducting offensive operations toward the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad agglomeration. In the city of Pokrovsk itself, an important enemy position was destroyed, which had provided the Russian army with a significant tactical advantage on the battlefield. According to the statement, enemy snipers used an elevated position at an industrial facility to keep a large area under fire control. In the village of Shakov, a gathering point for Russian army assault groups was discovered and destroyed. At the time of the strike, personnel from the 336th Separate Guards Marine Brigade were inside the building, the Special Operations Forces noted. In the village of Solntsev, in the Pokrovsky district, a temporary deployment point and an ammunition depot belonging to the strike UAV crew from the 6th Guards Tank Regiment of the 90th Guards Tank Division of the Russian Armed Forces were hit. In addition, an enemy ammunition depot was destroyed in the city of Dokuchaevsk. The facility was used by the Russian army as a storage, distribution, and shipment point for munitions for the group of troops advancing on Pokrovsk. Additionally, in the village of Rybinskoye, the location of the logistics support unit of the occupying Vostok troop group was successfully struck. At the same time, the monitoring project Deep State reports that Russian invaders have managed to advance within the city of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region. According to their data, Russian occupiers have managed to advance south of Mirnograd in the Pokrovsk district. At the same time, due to the Russians' inability to break through the Ukrainian defenses in Pokrovsk, they are attempting to bypass the city. In the Zaporizhia region, the 118th Separate Mechanized Brigade successfully repelled a Russian mechanized assault in the direction of Mala Tokmachka. According to the General Staff's report, over the past day, the defense forces stopped 191 engagements. According to the agency, the enemy carried out 52 airstrikes and dropped 129 guided aerial bombs. In the north, Slobozansky and Kursk directions, our soldiers repelled 9 enemy attacks over the past day. The enemy carried out 5 airstrikes using 9 guided aerial bombs and conducted 138 shellings. In the south Slobozansky direction, the enemy tried 5 times to break through the defensive lines of our defenders in the areas of the settlements of Volchansk-Sinelnikovo. In the Gulyai-Pol direction, Ukrainian defenders repelled 17 enemy attacks near the settlements of Zelenigay, Zatishye, Visokoye, and towards the settlement of Priluki. In the Orekov direction, our defenders repelled 6 enemy attacks in the areas of the settlements of Stepnoye, Stepnogorsk, and Primorskoye.